Hi, welcome to Texas History. This is History 2301. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez, and I'll be your instructor for this class this spring semester. Now, what we're going to be doing in this video presentation is to go over the syllabus, which is already uploaded on Blackboard, and we're going to examine every single aspect of this course as it is stated in the syllabus. We're going to pay attention to the major features and components for this class regarding, for example, course requirements in terms of the textbook that we're going to be using and for what reasons we're going to be using it as well. We're going to look at the course content, meaning what kind of topics or themes within Texas history we're going to be looking at. And also, we're going to look at the method of instruction. How are you going to be learning all of this material? What is the mode of learning? In other words, on a weekly basis, what are your responsibilities as we move along the semester? How the information is going to be presented and so on. And also, we're going to look at exams, how the exams are going to be formatted, how to prepare for them. And also there will be certain, of course, criteria, format that you also need to be very much aware of, and what is allowed and not allowed within the exams as well. We're also going to look at very briefly at extra credit assignments. They're already posted on Blackboard as well. And my criteria for grading as well. What are the major grade components for this course, how I grade, and also how I calculate grades at the end of the semester as well. What I really take into account, in other words. At the very end of this presentation, there will be a tentative course schedule timeline that I will be explaining what we're going to be covering week by week, when the exams are due, when the major course assignment is due as well for this course, and the like. So consider this video presentation as, let us just say, the very first day of class where you meet the instructor and the instructor explains everything you need to know about this course. So you'll be very well informed and oriented in how to navigate this course on Blackboard, where to identify the major sections of the course, instructional materials and assignments, where you're supposed to be submitting the work as well, and just offering you just very good guidance, again, for how to move across the semester in this course, how to prepare for the exams and the like. This is a very, very important video presentation that I highly recommend that if you want to take some notes, that's fine. Otherwise, just refer back to this video presentation, because I'm trying to answer most of the questions that students ask across the semester when they send me emails and the like. Of course, I'm here to respond to your emails and clarify your doubts and questions and the like. But more often than not, when students ask me questions regarding assignments and exams, or they ask me questions about the lectures and the like, most of the time, not all the time, but those questions can be answered by watching this video. Okay. All right. So let us then go to the Blackboard page, and we're now using, of course, starting the summer of 2025, we started using a new version of Blackboard. It's called Blackboard Ultra. I think, although it has a different interface, it's still very manageable, very easy to navigate. Now the menus are located at the very top, as you can see. There are a series of tabs that get you into different sectors of the course. The most important one, the one that we're going to be using mostly for this class is going to be content, course content. Everything is really located here in the course content section. Absolutely everything. The others, of course, are the announcements. Of course, I will be sending announcements on a weekly basis to inform you what are the lectures that you're supposed to be reviewing. When there's an exam coming up, I will be sending you an announcement as well. The announcement is posted on Blackboard, but I will be emailing the announcement to you, okay, to the entire class. And the grades are also posted here. You can watch your grades and so on. Now, in terms of messages, we're not gonna be using that because, as I will explain once we get into the syllabus, I prefer using the email method of communication because it's easier and I'm getting notified immediately. As soon as the student sends me an email, I'm notified and I respond immediately to it. Whereas course messages, sometimes Blackboard does not send any notification to the instructor. I will have to go to the Blackboard page and see if there are any messages and so on and so forth. Whereas emails, again, I'm getting notifications constantly with every new email I get. Okay. All right. So this is the course content section. Like I said, everything is located here. As you can see, this video will be posted at the very top in the class introduction, as you can see. Once it's ready, once it's edited, I will be posting it there, and I will send you an email announcement saying, now we got this video, it's important for you to watch, and so on and so forth. Below the class introduction video, there's going to be the syllabus. This is something that we're going to be examining in this video presentation mostly. Beneath that, the instructional materials, there you will find, as I will explain, the video lectures. All instruction, as I will explain, is going to take place via recorded video lectures. I'm using this exact same software that I'm using right now. And also the outlines. When I'm lecturing, I use outlines that have bullet points and key concepts and, key ideas, the name of certain individuals, maps and graphs. So they're located there as well in this folder, the lecture outlines, that is. All of the course assignments follow next. All of the course assignments are located in this folder. If you click on it, you will find that the exams, there are 3. First, second, and final exams are located. There's a report that is going to be due at the end of the course. It's also located here, the instructions. And at the end, you will find the extra credit assignments. This is the only assignment that is optional. It's not mandatory. Only if you want additional points added to your exams, you can open up that folder. You will find 3 extra credit assignments. You can do 1, 2, or 3. It's totally, once again, at the discretion of the student, depending on how many points they need and so on. And they're due at the end of the semester. Okay, so you don't have to worry about submitting those extra credit assignments anytime soon. And at the very end, there's a last section, a last folder that says submit work. All of the work is going to be submitted here. The exams, the report, the extra credits. There's an upload tab when you click on those links, and it takes you to the page where you upload the work, and this by the due date. And this is where everything is submitted. So it's very easy to navigate this course. I will explain as soon as we get into the syllabus, how easy it is in terms of just, reviewing the lectures and completing the exams. I will explain that as well, as fully as I can. The study questions report is also due towards the end of the semester, late April, thereabouts. As well as the extra credits for those that wish to do extra credit assignments is also due at the end of the semester. So again, it is very easy to navigate when it comes to using this Blackboard Ultra page. All right, so let's go to the syllabus because it is the document that explains it all. Everything you need to know is stated in this document. You click on this. As you can see, it will show you the entire document. It's a 10-page document. Very important document, by the way. I recommend downloading it on your computer, saving it somewhere safe, keeping it handy just for future reference. Okay. All right, so this is History 2301, Section 002. This is Texas history. This spring semester starts on Tuesday, January the 20th, and ends on May 17th. Okay, my name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I'll be your instructor for this class this semester. And the fastest and easiest way to reach me is via email, as I just explained a moment ago. It is very easy, again, to use the ACC email account versus the Blackboard. I mean, Blackboard, of course, is also very, very easy, but I don't receive notifications necessarily. I might or might not. So if you're trying to contact me regarding grades or an exam, clarifying an issue, etc., and if you need a quick answer, again, just use the email, in this case, the ACC email account, because ACC policy says that all communication between students and faculty has to take place within the ACC electronic supply systems. So if you send me an email from your private email account, I will not be responding to it. Okay, just keep it in mind. That is ACC policy, is the college policy. Okay, otherwise, emails through the ACC accounts, I'm responding to them Monday to Friday within a 24-hour period. If you send it early enough, I'll be responding in the same day, pretty much. If you send it quite late on that day, it was just the next day. Okay. During the weekends, however, I might take 48 hours. So for sure, you will be receiving a response. If you send the email during the weekend, you'll be receiving the response Monday morning. Okay, and that is just because during the weekends, sometimes I step out of town and I might not be responding to emails when students send me those messages. So again, just keep that in mind. Okay, I'll try as much as possible to do so. Now, in terms of textbooks, we're going to be using one, and this is the textbook that we're going to be using. It's called Texas Voices, as you can see. Okay, by Keith Bolanto, 5th edition. Make sure you're getting the 5th edition because the documents that are contained in this textbook will be used for completing the report or the assignment that is due in late April. So let me repeat, this text is not really a standard conventional textbook that presents a narrative of historical events about Texas history that you can read from chapter to chapter, cover to cover, but rather is a collection of very important historical documents that were generated by very famous and renowned historical figures in the world of politics, economics, culture, etc., you name it, that were important in shaping Texas history in one way or another. And so, again, this is not the textbook that you're going to be reading along with the lectures and somehow I'm kind of just repeating what the textbook says back to you, but rather this is just a collection of historical records, primary sources, they're called. A primary source is a source that comes directly from the historical actor without any filter whatsoever. So the reader can hear the voice, and this is why it's called Texas Voices, that you can hear the voice, the thoughts, the opinions directly, unfiltered, as they were pronounced and generated, by those historical actors. And so once we get into that section of the report, I will be explaining how to conduct it. But in a nutshell, what it entails, the report that is that you're going to be using this book. I've selected a series of documents for you to read. They're very short, by the way, documents. The entire document is not presented. Those are excerpts for the most part. And you're supposed to read it and answer a series of questions, on those documents. Okay, so make sure you're getting the 5th edition, because earlier editions contain different documents. Okay, so some students, for some reason, either mistakenly buy the wrong edition, or they just think that, earlier editions are going to be good enough, for this report. And then they send me emails quite late in the semester saying, I'm having trouble actually completing the report because several documents are missing here. And that's a problem, of course. I explain, look, the 4th, the 3rd edition, or even the earlier ones contain a totally set of different documents. Okay, where to buy this book? As far as I know, the ACC Highland Campus bookstore is the one that carries this book. So you might want to call them before you make a trip there, or you order it. I don't know if they can actually ship it to your home address. That might be, of course, a possibility. But they are for sure the ones carrying this book. For sure. That's the campus to call, to go to. Okay. You might be lucky enough to find it outside of this vendor, maybe online. Might be lucky enough to buy it from some very renowned sites out there that actually offers used copies as well. Just make sure you're getting the 5th edition once again. And if you have any doubts, use the ISBN number provided here, which takes you to this very specific edition. Okay. So this is the requirement. And we're not going to be using a conventional textbook for this course, just because my lectures, the lectures that I assemble and provided through the recordings that are available on Blackboard, were assembled from a multiplicity of different sources. They don't come from a single source, so it's not going to be very helpful to assign a textbook when my lectures are, once again, kind of tapping into a multiplicity of different factors in history, political, economic, cultural, religious, and so on, from many different sources. And the textbook is not going to offer that to you. In other words, the textbook is just going to present a whole different narrative altogether that is not going to provide any meaningful help or guidance to the lectures whatsoever. Okay. All right. So this course is going to be delivered fully online. There will be no designated days for real-time instruction. So it is asynchronous. So you can tailor your own schedule. Of course, I suggest, however, following a certain rhythm and pace as we move along from week to week. And that is kind of setting some time aside to review 2 video lectures per week. That will be the ideal. Okay, that will be just the ideal. It's almost like attending a class twice a week, but you don't have the inconvenience, let us just say, to drive to campus and then, spend time at campus taking classes. I mean, you can actually review those classes at any time. Just, try to reserve that time somehow, work around, your work schedules, family schedules, and say, okay, look, I just need to reserve some time once a week or twice a week, if you will, to review those 2 video lectures. Okay. All right. So let us move on into this next segment, and that is the course description. This is where we are supposed to explain the actual historical material that we're going to cover in this course. Okay. So it is a survey course in Texas history, and there's no dividing time periods. This is Texas history from prehistoric times, going back not only thousands, but perhaps tens of thousands of years into the past, all the way to the present, the 21st century. Okay. In this course, we're going to be paying attention to different aspects of Texas history, not just political history. I know that that's the kind of conventional way of presenting history. You pay attention to important political figures that kind of shaped the political institutions of Texas through their deeds and actions and conquest and the like. You look at presidents, you look at statesmen, you look at policymakers and judges, you look at politicians and elections and the like. But we're going to, pay some attention to that, but mostly we're also going to pay attention to society at large, ordinary people, that is to say, because history is not just made by the people in power. The history is also made by society, by human beings that are pretty much living their lives in a kind of, if you will, ordinary way, but creating a very meaningful impact, not only within their lives, but in the lives of their communities, in the lives of others living in the entire region. And so we're going to be paying attention to different groups and groupings, which include Native Americans, of course, different Native American groups and societies. We're going to be paying attention to the Spanish colonists that arrived in the 16th century to this region. And of course, looking at the interaction with the Native Americans. We're going to be paying attention to the peoples of Mexico, because at some point, Texas was incorporated into the Mexican Republic when Mexico gained its independence from Spain. So that we got another influence there. We're going to be paying attention to also the Anglo-Americans that started arriving in the 1820s into Texas to settle and establish colonies in Texas as well. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at also the African Americans. We see the introduction, of course, of African slavery in Texas also very early on in the 1820s and 30s. And we're also going to be paying attention to European immigrants, because Texas also kind of created an immigration policy that allowed immigrants from Europe to settle in Texas at some point. And more into the 20th century, we're also going to be paying attention to further immigration into Texas, mainly from peoples coming from Latin America and Asia as well. So again, it's going to be also a social history. It's not just political history, but also the history of society. We're going to be paying attention also to the different, if you will, episodes within Texas history that shaped this region or this state. We're going to be paying attention to, as I said, the Spanish conquest and colonization, the introduction of Spanish culture and institutions into Texas. We're going to be paying attention to the independence movement as well from Spain. We're going to be paying attention to the Texas Revolution, when Texas declared independence from Mexico. We are also going to be paying attention to the Civil War, the U.S. Civil War, in which Texas participated in on the side of the Confederacy. It joined the southern states that seceded from the American Union. And that in itself, of course, launched Texas into this war that attempted to kind of preserve, if you will, its status as a separate state from the American Union. We're going to examine that very closely. And after that, we will be paying attention to Reconstruction, the attempt by the Union, in this case, the northern states, to reform Texas, to abolish slavery in Texas, and to try to provide civil rights, equal rights to the freed population that were liberated from the Civil War. We're going to look at all that very closely. We're also going to be looking at another event in this class that it's also very significant for understanding Texas, and that is the industrialization and modernization of Texas. In the late 19th century, after the war was over and Reconstruction was over, what we're going to see is that Texas, for the first time, started really moving the state towards an industrial economy, allowing investors to come in and develop different industries. We're going to be looking at that and how the development of industries in Texas, mainly the energy industries, lumber industries, coal and lumber and oil, for instance, among others, how this is going to reshape Texas society. So the rise of large industrial cities in Texas, the migration of farmers onto big cities, the formation of social classes, working classes, and the like. All of that is going to be very transformational. We're going to be looking at that very closely. And we're going to look at the 20th century and the most important events that shook Texas in a way that it allowed for the flourishing, if you will, of a different society. So we're going to look at, for example, different crises that affected Texas in the early 20th century. Most of those crises were affected by economic downturns. Industrialization had, of course, disrupted the way of life, the rural way of lives of many Texans as they adapted to living in cities and working in factories and industrial plants and mines and the like. Texas the Texas working class in this case, and many of the small farms as well in Texas, were largely affected by this new growing industrial economy. And we're going to see, of course, the attempt by Texans to try to reform the economy to make it more democratic, so to speak. We see the different movements launched by the industrial working class and the farmers in trying to bring about reform in Texas. And monopolies was one of the goals set out by those groups, and also try to provide some workers' rights and benefits, if you will, for the industrial working class. Reduce the amount of time at the workplace to 8 hours, for example, set up a minimum wage, liability laws, compensation, and the like. We're going to be examining all of that. We will examine also the Great Depression, how the Great Depression affected Texas, how it disrupted the family economy, how it led to massive unemployment in Texas cities as well, and foreclosures as well of farms and Texas cattle ranchers, etc. And so we're going to see the response of Texans to the Great Depression and how the state was trying to address those problems, in sharp contrast to the ways that the federal government, led by FDR was trying to do so as well. Okay, we're at the very end of the course. We're going to be moving into other areas as well, other great impactful events such as World War II, how Texas participated in this war, in the Second World War, through the export of oil and, of course, manufacturing and defense contractors, etc., being situated in Texas, the production of weaponry and the like, a growing new industry in Texas. We're going to look at also the civil rights movement in Texas. We're going to look at the civil rights movement as it occurred nationwide, but how it manifested in Texas, how students were mobilized, how different minorities were also organized politically, African Americans, Mexican Americans, and the like, and how they struggled to gain some equal representation under the law in the United States. At the end, we're looking at Texas in the age of globalization, how the global age, if you will, is going to also transform Texas in many ways. One way is that there will be increasing immigration, for instance, from the outside into Texas from different parts of the world. So we got a society that is becoming more and more multicultural, multi-ethnic in Texas, with the coming of different groups. For example, Asians, mainly people from India, people from Japan, China, etc., and also Latin America. We see the development of a tech industry as well, the digital technologies here in Texas as well, how this is also kind of is becoming, again, part of globalization, connecting Texas to the global economy, the major export of oil to the world out of Texas as well is part of that. NAFTA, the free trade agreement and the like, connecting Texas with Mexico economically. We're going to examine all of those issues as we move along the semester. Now, like I said, this course is not just going to pay attention to politics and economics. It's also going to pay attention to society, different social groups and groupings, and how they struggle to create their communities inside of Texas. But at the same time, we're also going to be paying attention to culture and ideas. We have to look at culture as well. What are the set of ideas and beliefs that people hold dear, how they see the world around them, how they construct reality, what they believe in, and so on. So for that, we're going to be paying attention closely to, let us just say, religious worldviews, religious practices, religious traditions. Whether we're talking about the Native Americans or we're talking about Mexican Americans or Anglo Americans and the like, we are going to be paying attention, again, to their worldviews, how they construct reality, what they believe in, what is their idea of the universe. So we have to pay attention to their beliefs, their rituals, their ceremonies, and the like. We are also going to be paying attention to science and technology, scientific revolutions and technological revolutions, particularly those that occurred in the 19th century and in the 20th century, will also be explained, and how revolutionary change in science and technology is going to change the way peoples in Texas are going to not only see the world, but also how they're going to operate within it, okay, economically and so on. The coming of the machine age and the like. All of that, again, is going to be incorporated into the analysis. So it's not going to be just conventional politics and economics, but also, again, paying attention to the world of ideas from within. Okay, trying to see the world through people's eyes as much as possible. Okay, all right. So this is the course content. Of course, there is, a page that presents the 9 topics that we're going to cover Okay, it is a table of contents, so to speak, that you can see here, in which we cover three main historical periods within Texas history, and then within each one of those periods or epochs, we cover three topics or three historical themes that, for me, in my opinion, explain the most important forces shaping Texas history during that period of time. So again, there are going to be 9 topics covered throughout this course, and they're kind of subdivided into 3 historical eras, as you can see here. Now, the question is, just go back to the mode of learning. How are you going to be learning all of this material? Well, as I explained a moment ago, you will be learning all of this material through recorded video lectures. Okay, I've recorded all of my lectures the same way I present those lectures in a face-to-face class, in-person class. Okay, so I'm trying to give students, in this case, a kind of virtual experience of a face-to-face class, okay, which is lecture-based. Through this software, the student will be able to see the instructor and hear the lecture. And just as I use lecture outlines in the projector in my classes, I will be presenting those outlines here in the screen. So you'll be following along, you'll be listening to the lecture, and you'll be writing down, not necessarily everything I say, because that's not the case, but paying attention to, for example, the lecture outlines is actually letting you know what we're discussing, what I'm explaining, and you say, okay, so this is important because in the lecture outline, again, he's actually elaborating on this idea. I need to kind of explain it, I need to write it down and have the exact explanation of this and so on. So I will be sending you 2 video lectures per week. It can be a Monday and Wednesday, or it can be a Tuesday and Thursday. But for sure, there will be 2 video lectures sent to the class each week, just to let you know where we are, in other words, in the semester. That's the ideal, because if students are not informed where we are, and you just say, okay, look, I have all of those lectures to review, and the exam is February the 26th, let us just say, okay? You may say, yeah, I'll wait until close to the exam to start reviewing everything. That's going to be a monumental task. So I'm trying to, instead of trying to review a lot of information all at once in just a few days, instead just do it little by little, slowly, week by week. And as you're taking notes, once the exam comes, it will be easier, again, to kind of conduct the exam and complete it. So this is one of the reasons why I will be sending those email announcements indicating exactly which lectures you're supposed to be reviewing each week. And like I said, the lectures, if we go back, they're located here under instructional materials. You click on it and you will see 2 folders, lectures and the outlines. If you click on the lectures, you will see 9 folders, because I just explained there'll be 9 topics that we're going to be covering. Each folder contains 3 videos, as you can see. We start with the indigenous peoples of the Americas in Texas, and there will be 3 sessions. Each folder, which is really one of the main topics that we're covering, contains 3 videos. Session 1, 2, and 3. And the idea is, again, to be reviewing those videos in sequence, in that order. You start with session 1, then session 2, session 3, and so on. Okay, So I will be notifying you where we are. If we start with session 1 of the first topic, you'll be informed about that. And then the following time, they may, again, Monday or Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday. Then the other day, you will be notified, oh, now review session 2, and so on and so forth. Again, in sequence. We're going to be doing this in sequence. Okay? So let us go back to the syllabus. So this is where you find, again, the video lectures for the 9 topics that we're going to be covering. Let's go back to the syllabus. All right, so once again, my lectures stem from a multiplicity of different sources, books, articles, editorials, and so on that I've read over many, many years. So you will notice right away that as I'm presenting the lectures on the Native Americans and so on, that again, it is very, very varied, the analysis, in that I'm paying attention to religion and culture and society and the like. So there are different aspects. Again, I want you to have a very broad, if you will, understanding of the peoples that we study in the past. So this is one of the reasons why I'm not using a textbook for this course, because again, I have not found a textbook that kind of complements my lectures in a way that it will kind of enhance the learning by highlighting certain issues that we're covering and so on and so forth. I know that in other classes it will be more suitable. I mean, you getting a textbook that might be very fit for a particular course, and all the instructor is doing is kind of trying to go chapter by chapter, kind of explaining what the chapters are trying to say to you and so on. Okay, but here is quite different. Okay, those are the 9 topics. Once we cover 3 topics, we have an exam over that material and that material alone. So you don't need to follow anything else, no other kind of readings of any kind you need to be concerned with other than just the lectures. Okay? Just the lectures. And so there will be 3 exams. Each is worth 25 sorry, 25% of the final grade. Now, the exams, the way they're formatted is that they're not going to be multiple choice. They're not going to be fill in the blank. They're not going to require scantrons or anything like that whatsoever. But rather, my exams are based on presenting a series of questions, and you're supposed to be answering those questions pretty much. Okay? And so the format is, if we can just use an example here, if we can go back to, let it just say, the course content, and so we can see an example in the course assignments. Let it just say, the first exam. Each exam is formatted identical in that it consists of 2 parts. It consists of 2 parts. Part 1, I call it the topic section, for 70 points. I'm actually presenting 2 topics out of the 3 that we cover, and you only select one. Just select one topic. You don't need to be concerned with anything else. Okay, just if you feel more inclined to look at the indigenous peoples of the Americas and Texas, okay. So what that means is that when it comes to reviewing the lectures, well, if you're just going to do this topic, well, just kind of concentrate heavily on watching those videos and getting the notes, because ultimately this is the topic that you're going to select again for the exam. Okay, and instead of writing a essay composition, I'm asking you just to address each question presented for that one topic that you select and answer each question as fully as possible. As thoroughly as possible. Try to be very descriptive. Try to explain it as fully as possible using details and examples and the like. Don't fall short in elaborating on those issues. If you're trying to explain the religions of the Native Americans as that religion kind of emerged back in the Stone Age, for instance, the kind of beliefs and religious practices that the natives formulated for the animal world and hunting and so on, the different rituals they performed, well, try to explain them. Try to explain exactly how they saw the world around them, why they believed that the animals were gods and ancestors and so on, why they needed to be venerated, in what way they needed to be worshipped, and the like. Be descriptive, in other words. Don't assume that just because you mention that they worshipped animals that I understand what you're talking about. No, I need to fully understand what you're talking about by you explaining it back to me. It's almost like now you're the teacher. Okay, pretend that you're writing to an audience that has no clue of history. You are a writer, you are a historian, or you're a philosopher, you are a critic, you name it. You can see yourself in so many different ways. Okay, and what you're doing is that you learned some material, you were presented with some analysis and so on, and you're trying to teach this material to an audience that is totally uninformed of the subject matter. So the more you explain, the better they will be able to understand. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, so when you're writing, try to be very descriptive, very thorough. Don't fall short in your explanations. Don't just skip them because, well, it's going to take me some more lines and I just really want to just get it over with and submit it, get whatever grade I want. Well, I mean, I don't think that philosophy is very helpful, again, when it comes to learning in this case and growing academically. It is best to really work on your writing skills, on your analytical skills, your critical thinking skills, and you're trying to express yourself, you're trying to explain certain concepts using, of course, your own style, your own way of presenting things, if you will. But ultimately, again, this is something that needs to be developed, okay? And so just for part one, the answers as a whole must be at the very least 5 full pages double space, just 5 full pages, okay? This is something that is not timed. The exams do not take place on one day at a specific time. They're like writing assignments, so you have all this time to complete it and be ready to submit it on Blackboard by, the first exam is by February the 26th. So you have roughly about 5 weeks to complete this assignment. So again, you have the notes at your disposal, you have the information, and all I'm asking you is watch the videos, take notes, and answer those questions in that order, one by one, using a question and answer format. You write the question, you answer it as fully as possible, move to the next question, state it, and so on and so forth, one by one. Okay? Part two, the key terms or key themes, and this is not identification, this is not just definition. Here, I'm asking you to pick 2 out of 3 topics that we covered in another topic, and that is the topic on Texas and the Mexican nation. And here, I'm asking you to elaborate as fully as possible on that one topic or term or theme, etc. So it's not just defining it, it's not just identifying it, but rather you really have to describe and explain as fully as possible. Okay? So I'm asking you to, at the very least, write one full page doublespace per key term in this case. You can go overboard, of course. There will be no penalties. You can write as many as you can, as many pages as you can, of course. There will be no limit on that. The limit is in the minimum requirement, that is to say. Okay? And this is for 30 points. Now, like I said, this is a writing assignment more than just like a timed exam that is scheduled for a specific day and time. Okay? So you have plenty of time available. Everything has to be typed, double space, page numbered, and so on and so forth. And everything is saved within a single file to be uploaded on Blackboard by the due date. Now, having said that, because this is a writing assignment and you have all this time in the world, so to speak, I mean, you have 5 weeks to do it. There are some criteria that students must follow, and I'm very, very strict. And I repeat, I am very, very adamant, very, very strict in enforcing this criteria. And that is that for the answers of both part 1 and part 2, students are only allowed to use the lectures to answer the questions and the key terms, and nothing else. In other words, only lecture material that was presented in those recordings will be allowed in the answers, and nothing else. So if I start reading, for instance, in this case, information that I did not present, regardless where that information came from, it could have been, gathered from, let us just say, past knowledge, thinking other courses, maybe you read other books, or maybe you went online, or maybe etc. Doesn't matter. Again, it's totally irrelevant. The work will be disqualified. Okay, so once again, I'm giving you kind of an open note kind of test, 5 weeks to complete and so on, but the requirement is I must make sure that you review the material that was given to you, the instructions, the information, the lectures, that you reviewed that you were very, very disciplined in watching the videos, you took notes, and that you use that again in the analysis to kind of explain and write, if you will, a piece that is original. This is something that you produced, that you generated. You are demonstrating that you are indeed present in this class. You're participating. You're engaged in the discipline of covering the material, reviewing it, mastering the material, and the like. And so you get, of course, the grade that you earn. I mean, you have to earn the grade. In other words, the grades are not given to the student. The students earn the grade in this case. So to earn an A or a B or a C, it doesn't matter. Students must demonstrate that they're doing the work. Okay? So, 1, the use of outside sources is totally prohibited in the exams, and also the use of AI or any other software that allows students to kind of put together the information. It's also very, very, of course, evident when reading answers. Or the use of transcriptions as well. Some students decide to just transcribe my lectures using some applications. There's many of them out there. And all they do is that they write their name on top of the page of the transcription and submit it. So that's not going to work either. I'm actually hearing myself in the answers. Okay? That's not going to work either. I mean, the idea is that you are supposed to do this work. You're supposed to do the historical discipline, the discipline of history involves studying the past, reviewing material, be able to comprehend the material, analyze it, think through it critically, and be able to develop your writing skills as well. Okay, this is very, very important. It's a skill that has to be developed and acquired as students go through academia. Of course, this is something going to actually build, if you will, some skills that will be very helpful later on in your life. You will be able to understand the world around you much, much better. You will be able to analyze it. You'll be able to think critically, form your own opinions, and also, again, be able to communicate. It's very important how we communicate also our ideas. So the exams must demonstrate that you are producing an original work. This is, again, something that must be demonstrated in the answers, that you watch the videos, that you took notes, you're thinking critically. There's plenty of analysis in the lectures. You will be able to use those analysis and the like. Okay. Now, why I'm so adamant in enforcing this policy of not using AI and transcriptors and outside sources is because precisely we live in a totally new age. It's called the information age. Students have at their disposal so many tools that provide the temptation, let us just say, for really not doing any work whatsoever. Now, the machine can do the work for us. They can think for us. They can do search for us. They can read for us. And so ultimately, they can write everything for us. So we're not really developing our own faculties whatsoever. We remain stagnant. We're not going to learn much. We're not going to grow much. Our mind is not going to be influenced, inspired, affected by this new information that is supposed to make the mind brighter, more intelligent, sharper, and the like, in terms of trying to analyze the world around us and trying to understand it. So for that reason, again, for this class, the use of those technologies remain strictly prohibited. Okay, just keep that in mind, because students who perhaps do not watch this class introduction video and kind of decide to just go ahead and use outside sources and AI, etc. Those are the students that don't pass this course. Okay, they remain until the very end thinking that maybe this time he's not going to realize how much I use AI. I do realize, of course. Okay, it is very evident. All right, so let us go back to the syllabus. So those are the 3 exams. They will be identical in their format, identical, and they're all based on the lectures, each one of them. Okay. You got also the extra credit assignments. The extra credit assignments, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video presentation, already posted on Blackboard. They're not mandatory; they're optional. And each extra credit assignment can award 10 points towards each of the exams. Any, by the way. Okay, there are 3 extra credit assignments, there are 3 exams, so you can actually put those 10 points towards any of the exams, the lowest grade, let us just say. Okay? So what that means is that your grades are not set in stone. Your grades can improve. You can add points through extra credit and the like. Again, there's plenty of opportunities for boosting your grades here. Now, a piece of technical information here is that you have until April 27th to withdraw from this course without affecting your GPA. You'll receive a W for this course. Otherwise, if you fail to withdraw from this course, you will be receiving whatever grade you earn. Okay? Even if you did not submit any work whatsoever, you never participated, you were never present, etc. Okay. But the system still has you enroll in this course. And so at the end of the semester is going to ask me for a grade, in other words, okay? Now, if you decide to withdraw from this course because it's out of your reach, it's something, of course, something that work related, etc. You cannot continue. Okay, I understand, okay? Not going to interfere with that decision. However, if you feel you can finish this course, you just need a little bit more time, you're just falling behind, etc. For one reason or another, you need a minor extension here and there, please talk to me, okay? And before you decide to withdraw, I will rather kind of help you stay in the course, providing those minor extensions and the like, so you can actually finish this course successfully, okay? Now, I mentioned there will be one course assignment due at the end of the semester. I call it the study questions report. It's based upon this textbook. We explained this Texas Voices, the collection of historical documents. I've selected 10 of those documents for you to read. The guidelines are presented here in the syllabus. It tells you which document to read, which chapter to look for, the page numbers, the title, and the questions. Just proceed by reading each document, and then once you start working on the report, follow a question and answer format, and also state at the very top of the document the title of the document that you're addressing. Okay, so you state at the very top, let it just say, Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca encounters Texas coastal Indians. And then write the question and then the answer, question and answer, one by one, one by one. You move into a new document, you write on top of the page the title of the document, and you proceed with question and answer, one by one. Again, ideally, the report at the end of the day will be 10 full pages, double space, which means that I'm looking at more or less one full page per document. Okay? Ideally, you can go more than that, of course, but at the very minimum, again, try to write one full page per document before moving into the next one, and so on and so forth. Okay? Everything has to be saved in a single document, either Word or PDF, and be submitted by the due date, in this case, April 23rd. That will be the due date to submit the study questions report. Okay, so likewise with the exams must be saved by using Word or PDF, because any other application, Blackboard, does not guarantee to open. Okay? The ones that I know for sure opens is Word doc and PDF. Okay, so again, this is 25% of your final grade. If you're going to be citing information, just include the page number in parentheses at the end of the quoted sentence or paragraph, and that will be enough. If you want to be using any other method like MLA or the footnote, which is called Chicago style, that's fine. I mean, any citation method is fine. But if at the very least you are inserting, let's say, the page number of the textbook where you got the citation, that will be enough. Okay. All right. So that's the report. I highly recommend, once again, getting this textbook within the next, let us just say, 2 or 3 weeks, just because the ACC bookstore starts sending back unsold copies back to the vendor at midpoint in the semester. So if you wait long enough, let us just say if you waited until, let us just say, the beginning of April, okay? If you wait until April, it's not guaranteed that you're going to find this book at the ACC bookstore, just because just at midpoint in the semester, they just assume that the students who did not buy the book by then maybe did not need the book, or maybe they got it from some other vendor, from some other source. Okay, so if I were you, to avoid any hassles whatsoever, I would try to get this textbook within the next 2 or 3 weeks, just to make sure. Okay, start working on it slowly as we move along the semester. There are 4 major components, factors, when it comes to grading in this course. The 3 exams that we covered, and the report. Each is worth 25% for a total of 100 points. If you add to this, of course, you know that we are also going to look at extra credit assignments. There's another factor. And also, I take into account progress and effort. So when I'm calculating grades at the end of the semester, and I'm actually going student by student, I'm actually looking at your progress or lack thereof. So if I'm looking at, look, you know, this student is actually moving from a 75 to an 84 to a 91 in the exams. They submitted 1 extra credit assignment. So obviously the student is trying to improve. I can see very, very clearly across the semester is putting an effort. And you ended up, let us just say, with an 88.75 grade average. That progress, that effort has to be rewarded. So I'll give you the final push only if I see that your grades are moving up in the scale and that you're doing extra work as well. Okay, if you're borderline, just short of receiving the next letter grade, if I see that, then I'll give you the next letter grade. Okay. All right, so important dates to contemplate here, okay, is the first day of class is the 20th January. Spring break will be March from the 16th to the 20th, and April 27th, the last day to drop a class, and the final exams will be from May 11th to the 15th. Okay, so those are the most important dates. And at the end, as I said, there's a tentative course schedule and assignments. It tells you week by week where we're covering, and when we're having the first exam is the February the 26th. Before the due date, I will send you an announcement just to remind you that, well, you're supposed to be uploading the document by that date. Part 2 is also looking at the topics that we're covering, and also the second exam, April the 9th. And then at the very end, the last part of the course is going to tell you week by week what we're covering. The study questions report due on April 23rd, and that May the 14th is our final exam. Okay, when you're supposed to be submitting that final exam. Okay, where are you supposed to be submitting all this work? As I said almost in the beginning, there's a folder here at the very bottom. Okay, submit work. As you can see in this folder, submit work, you click on it, there will be every upload tab for the exams, the report, the extra credits. That's where you upload all of the work. Okay, so this is all I have for you. I hope it was very helpful in identifying the components of this course, in identifying the sections where you find the materials, the lectures, the requirements, you know, the format of the exam, how to prepare for them, and the like. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send me an email and I'll be responding within a 24-hour period, Monday through Friday. I hope you have found this video presentation very, very valuable. Like I said, I try to answer most of the questions that students have across the semester when it comes to the assignments, for example, the format and the exams, and etc. Okay. Once again, my name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I will be your instructor for this course this spring semester. And I hope to see you then in the first day of class when I send that announcement regarding the video presentation. That's all I have for you. Thank you.